Thank you once again for your patience and willingness to dive deeper into this topic with me today. I truly appreciate the opportunity to explore this concept with all of you. This might seem like a simple idea on the surface, choosing silence over reaction, but it is, in reality, an incredibly profound and nuanced approach to handling life's challenges. It's one of those principles that, if truly understood and embraced, can transform not just how we interact with others, but also how we experience the world internally. Let's begin by unpacking why we react in the first place. The human mind is wired to respond quickly to perceived threats. This instinct comes from a time when survival depended on being able to react swiftly to dangers in our environment. If a predator was nearby, or if an enemy was approaching, reacting quickly was the difference between life and death. This fight or flight response is deeply embedded in our brains, and it's not something we can entirely control. However, in modern life, most of the threats we encounter are not matters of life and death. They are threats to our pride, our ego, or our sense of self-worth. When someone criticizes us, makes a hurtful comment, or disrespects us, it triggers that same ancient response. We feel that sting, that rush of adrenaline, that urge to protect ourselves. It feels almost automatic. But here's the thing, while it's natural to feel that urge, it doesn't mean we are obligated to act on it. This is where our capacity for self-awareness and choice comes into play. Unlike our ancient ancestors, we have the ability to reflect, to pause, to question whether reacting is truly the best course of action. Consider how often we find ourselves regretting our reactions. Perhaps it was a moment when someone's words cut deep, and in a rush of anger we fired back a response. Maybe it was an impulsive text message or a heated comment made in person. In those moments we may feel justified, even righteous, in defending ourselves. But when the dust settles, when our emotions cool down, we often realize that reacting only made the situation worse. It added layers of tension, created misunderstandings, and sometimes it damaged relationships that took years to build. Why does this happen? Because when we react from a place of hurt or anger, we are not truly responding to the person in front of us. We are responding to the emotion they have triggered within us. In a way, we are reacting to our own pain, not to the actual words or actions of the other person. It's almost like we are fighting ghosts, old insecurities, past hurts, or unresolved conflicts that have nothing to do with the present moment. But if we can recognize this pattern, if we can learn to see that moment of reaction for what it truly is, an emotional reflex, we can create a space between stimulus and response. And in that space lies our power. It is in that pause, that moment of silence, that we find the freedom to choose how we wish to respond or whether to respond at all. Silence, in this sense, is not passive. It is not about being a doormat or letting people walk all over you. It's about actively choosing to not engage in a way that diminishes your inner peace. Imagine for a moment that your mind is like a calm lake. When someone throws a stone into that lake, it creates ripples. The bigger your reaction, the bigger the ripples. But if you choose not to react, if you let the stone sink without disturbance, the lake quickly returns to its natural, peaceful state. This is the power of silence. It allows you to preserve your calm, to protect your inner state from unnecessary turmoil. One of the most beautiful aspects of silence is that it gives you time. In a world where everything moves so quickly, where we are constantly bombarded with messages, notifications, opinions, and demands, time is one of our most precious resources. By choosing silence, you are giving yourself the time to think, to reflect, to understand not only the situation but also your own feelings. Silence allows you to observe your thoughts rather than being controlled by them. It gives you the space to ask, is this really worth my energy? Is reacting in this moment going to serve me in the long run? There is also something deeply humbling about choosing silence. It requires us to let go of our ego, to let go of the need to be right, to be acknowledged, to have the last word. This is not easy because our ego craves validation. It wants to be seen, to be heard, to be respected. But true strength does not come from external validation, it comes from within. By choosing silence, you are affirming that your sense of self is not dependent on what others think of you. You are choosing to be the master of your own mind, rather than letting others dictate your emotions. Let's delve even deeper into the practical impact of this principle on our relationships. Think about the dynamics between you and the people closest to you. These are the relationships where we are often the most vulnerable, where we care the most about being understood and appreciated. But they are also the relationships where misunderstandings and conflicts can arise most frequently because emotions run high. When we react impulsively in these relationships, we often hurt the people we love the most. Imagine a scenario where a close friend or family member says something hurtful in a moment of anger. Our instinct might be to react, to defend ourselves, to throw back our own words like daggers. But imagine if instead you chose silence. Not the kind of silence that is cold and punishing, but a compassionate silence that allows the other person the space to calm down, to reflect on their own words, to see that you are not engaging in the same negativity. That kind of silence can be healing. It can de-escalate a conflict rather than inflaming it. It can open the door to a more meaningful, respectful dialogue later on when emotions have settled. Silence can also be a form of deep listening. When you choose not to react, you are giving yourself the opportunity to truly hear what the other person is saying, not just their words, but the emotions behind those words. You might discover that their harshness is not really directed at you, but is a reflection of their own inner pain, their own struggles. By not reacting, you are showing empathy, even if silently, and that can be incredibly powerful in resolving conflicts and deepening connections. Furthermore, practicing silence can transform not just our external relationships, but also our relationship with ourselves. How often do we react not just to others, but to our own thoughts? How often do we criticize ourselves, react to our own mistakes with harsh self-talk, or dwell on past regrets? By practicing silence with ourselves, by choosing to observe our thoughts without immediately reacting to them, we can cultivate a more compassionate inner dialogue. We can learn to sit with our emotions, to let them rise and fall like waves without being swept away by them. Imagine waking up in the morning and instead of reaching for your phone to check messages or scrolling through social media, you take a moment of silence. You allow yourself to greet the day with stillness, with gratitude, with a sense of calm before the noise of the world rushes in. Imagine how much more centered, more resilient, more peaceful you would feel throughout the day. This is the gift of silence. The world is filled with noise. Everyone is clamoring to be heard, to express their opinions, to assert their identity. In the midst of all this chaos, silence can be a form of rebellion. It can be a statement that says, I am not a part of this madness. I am choosing a different path. By embracing silence, we can find a sanctuary within ourselves, a place that is untouched by the chaos of the world. This sanctuary is where we can connect with our true selves, where we can hear our own thoughts, our own wisdom without the interference of outside opinions. So the next time you find yourself in a situation where your instinct is to react, remember this: you have a choice. You can choose to protect your peace, to rise above the provocation, to respond with the strength of silence. In that silence, you will find clarity. You will find strength. And most importantly, you will find yourself. Thank you once again for listening so intently. I hope that these thoughts resonate with you and that you may find the courage to embrace the power of silence in your own lives.